Shalom, Israel. This is SOT Soldier Yabal. And before I get started, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, Yahweh Shah. I'm bringing you a lesson today on the myth of the Egyptian. And what I mean by that is I want to just tell you a little something that happened. We were out teaching. We had three guys walk up to us, and they told us that they were Egyptian. And so as we got into this discussion, they started talking about ancient Egypt, and they were the ancient Egyptians. And then at the same time, they turned around and said Egypt was conquered several times, so no one knows who a true Egyptian is. And I was like, these guys are whack. They're way out there. So what I want to do today is show you the little word games that they're playing. All right, so first of all, the first thing you need to know when you encounter these folks is that the suffix IAN means that you're not the real thing. So right here, if you look on this screen, I have, if you watch my cursor, that's IAN as a suffix. You can tell it's a suffix because of the dash in front, okay? And it says, of relating to or resembling. Not the real thing, you resemble the real thing. Number 2 says, one relating to, belonging to, or resembling. So it's no different than the suffix ish. Like if someone says, you're reddish, you're not actually red. Egyptian is the same thing. You have Egypt and you have Egyptians. Now, let me show you a little something else. Let's go back to here. So, let's go. You have to understand a little something about the time period when they start talking about ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt really covers a vast amount of time by the way that the scholars are doing it, because they're trying to hide something. Where do I really want to go? Let's go right here to Rowan University. They give a definition. So right here we have Rowan University, and they do the study of Egyptology. Egyptology, the study of ancient Egypt. Now, I want you to focus on this ancient Egypt. Now let's go down here and get the definition. Hopefully y'all can see my cursor here. Egyptology is a highly specialized scholarly pursuit that draws on the various academic fields of archaeology, history, Near Eastern studies, and engineering, among others. It is the study, the art, culture, engineering, language, literature, politics, religion, and writing systems. Now, this is what I want you to see. I'm going to highlight this for you. The period to which ancient Egypt refers begins in the 5th millennium BCE through the end of the Roman rule. Okay? So that's a large amount of time, and they're talking about a vast number of people. So I want you to take a look at this book here. It says Ancient Egypt, and it's by Thomas and Hudson. Okay? So in this book, we have a timeline. Can we get that in the page? So here at the bottom, and it tells us the same thing. I have it highlighted right here. Ancient Egypt covers such a vast period of time and geographical area that is often easy to simplify and decentralize. So what they have here is they say from the pre-dynastic and early dynastic period. I'm sorry, let me say that again. The pre-dynastic and early dynastic period. And then they go all the way over here to the Roman period. Okay? And so they have different ages in here. See if we can scan all of that. And they have dates for all of that. Well, you have to realize these different dates, these different ages, they also have different people ruling. All right. So let's now go to So back to ancient Egypt, and this is just Wikipedia right here, okay? So let's go down. Well, let's start here. Ancient Egypt was a civilization in Northeast Africa. Keep that in mind. We're talking about Africa. So we ought to know what the people look like. When we think of Africa, we think of black people, okay? And when I say black, there's really no such thing as a black person with different shades of brown. Just like there's no white people. There are different shades of red, okay? So we go down to the second paragraph, and it starts off. Let me bring it up some. Make sure that it's on the screen. Highlight that so y'all know where I am. Egypt reached the pinnacle of its power in the New Kingdom, ruling much of Nubia and a sizable portion of the Near East. You see that, Nubia? Nubia is a region along the Nile River, encompassing the area between the first cataract of the Nile and the confluence of the Blue and White Niles, okay? You keep on going down through there, and it says one of the earliest civilizations of ancient Africa, all right? So let's keep reading. And the sizable portion of the Northeast, okay? Now we get down here, it says Egypt was invaded or conquered by a number of foreign powers, including the Hyksos, the Libyans, the Nubians, all right? Now watch what it says under Nubians this time. Nubians are an ethnic group indigenous to the region. Indigenous means that they are the original people. So by the thought process we would normally use when we say ancient Egypt, we think that we're talking about the first people, the original people that were there. They have conflated this thing to include themselves. And when I say they, you're going to see who I'm talking about. So Nubians are an ethnic group indigenous to the region, which is now northern Sudan and southern Egypt. Now remember, Egypt was invaded or conquered. These people got pushed into the Sudan. But if you go into the Bible, there are also the Hamites. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, he was a Hamite, and he was of the same region. Okay? So those are your modern-day Kenyans. That's why the land of Kenya did not exist until the 1960s. They had to put these people somewhere. Okay? All right, so here we go. I want to show you something about these Nubians. So in the same book that I showed you earlier, Ancient Egypt, we have right here some palace tiles, okay? I can't get all of that in the picture at one time, but what I want you to know is it says the interiors of palaces, even as small and ritualized as the one at Medinet Habu in Thebes, were richly decorated, especially those that were accessible to visiting dignitaries from Egypt and abroad. The tiles depict various subjugated enemies of Egypt. Now, just think about it. Okay, let me finish reading. Here, Nubians were with distinctive hairstyles and clothing. Now, we just read that these were the indigenous people of the land of Egypt. Now it's saying that they are enemies of Egypt. So by this time, when these tiles are made, someone else is ruling Egypt. But what I want you to see is what these Nubians look like. These were black people. Okay? These were the original people of Egypt. Not Egyptian, but the original people of Egypt. Okay? Now I want to take you someplace else. Same book. Now I want you to see this sculpture here. Now we're going to read over here what it's saying about that sculpture. Representations of Nubian kings. Now I just showed you what a Nubian looks like. You see the sculpture again. This is a black person. That's what a Nubian is, okay? Different shades of brown, I should say. Representations of Nubian kings of the 25th dynasty almost always present the pharaoh wearing a double cobra. So right here, you see a double cobra. It says a double cobra on his brow rather than the single serpent. The symbolism of this innovation may reflect the Nubians' perception of themselves as lords of two lands. Okay? That's what I want you to get, because I'm about to show you something. Now let's go over to here. Now you're seeing another person with a double cobra on their head. Let's see what it has to say about him. I think y'all can see that if I keep it like that. Statue head of Ptolemy the Eighth. It says, Alexander the Great's successors on the throne of Egypt were a Macedonian family of kings called Ptolemy, who strove to appear as legitimate pharaohs in Egyptian royal regalia. I want to say that again. Who strove to appear as legitimate pharaohs. So these were not the real people of Egypt. These would be Egyptians resembling. They came in later on during the time of, when the so-called Greeks, which you really should say are Grecians under Alexander the Great, came in and conquered Egypt. Okay? Alexander was a Macedonian. And by saying Macedonian, we still have that I-A-N at the end, because that is not his original culture. He is not really of Macedon by ethnicity. He was born and raised in Macedon, okay? So that's what you have right there. Now you have, this is the first time when white people come into Egypt. And it goes on to say, however, the traditional double crown rarely appears as the sole royal headgear in sculptures and Ptolemaic rulers. Here is an exception. Although the identity of the king is not explicitly stated by an inscription, many scholars have pointed to the full face. Right here, he's fat. To the full face, wide open eyes, and pouting Cupid's bow lips as belonging to King Ptolemy the Eighth, known as Physcon. Physcon means the fat. This life-size sculpture blends the influence of both Greek and Egyptian trends. Now I want to show you something else. So here we have a sculpture of Cleopatra, okay? Hope you guys can see that. And it says something about her. The famous Cleopatra was in fact the last of at least 7 women with that name in the Ptolemaic dynasty. She is shown here in the typically frontal pose of an Egyptian queen. Egyptian, to be like, not the actual people. Yet with distinctively Ptolemaic curvaceousness. Look at that face. Just like this guy. So those pictures you've seen of her, they're not accurate. Her father was a Grecian. Her mother would have been one of the people of Egypt. Okay? So it goes on to say, she grasps both Egyptian and Greek symbols. She has the Ankh. You can't really see it. Over here. Or hieroglyphic symbol for life, usually associated with pharaonic divinities. And the double cornucopia, or horn of plenty, right here. So the Ankh is in her right hand, and then you have the horn of plenty, which a lot of you set out on your tables at Thanksgiving. That thing comes from Egypt. Okay? All right, so I wanted you to see those things. Because what we have here, when we're talking about ancient Egypt, put this in front of you again. We have the pre-dynastic and early dynastic period. We have the Old Kingdom. We have the Middle Kingdom. We have the New Kingdom. We have the third intermediate period. We have the late period, and we have the Roman period. Why are Romans and Greeks being included in the land of Egypt? Because they conquered it. They went in, they killed the people, and they ran them off. The strange thing about this culture is when they come in, they claim to be the people. They claim to be Jewish if they go over to the land of Israel. They claim to be Egyptian if they go into Egypt. They claim to be Assyrian in the Middle East. Okay? So that's what I wanted you to see on that. This was not going to be a long class. Shalom, Israel.